see I just need to get some stuff, get going, get the things out of my head because I'm going to start losing my place. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here tonight with me on the Eye of the Storm. You could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you're here with me, and for that, I want to thank you. I'm Storm Leroy. I'm here, and when I say I'm here, I mean I'm blessed to be in a time where we're living, where things are going so fast, but it's fast and it's scary. It's fast and it's scary. Technology is moving at an alarming rate. Seeing a couple of different things on 60 Minutes. There was a great interview I watched. There was a couple great things. I guess there's some people still over in the chat. You guys could, I dropped the link over there, and I put the link in the community also. So I'm trying to wait for people to get back, but I want to get into my zone. The climate of where things are going now is always what piques my interest to talk about first. Right? That's like one of the first things I get into is to talk about the climate, because being that it's going so fast, I'm seeing a lot of information. I'm seeing a lot of things. There was the talk about, they played an article from 2019 where they interviewed one of the top engineers at Google. And then they replayed another interview that they just did in 2023 from an executive who talked about where they at from 2019 to 2023. And that was scary. It was AI just started. They had face recognition programs. They had a couple of things going on. And one of the things that I liked about this interview, the gentleman from 2023, he let us know the fears we need to be afraid of where technology is going. First gentleman, 2019, said roughly jobs will be displaced, but we would adapt. Welcome everybody. We would adapt to the jobs, right? So he used steam engine as an example. We adapt. We went from horseback, steam engine. People adapt with the jobs, right? Sewing machines, he brought that up, things of that nature. But what we have to understand is the way technology is shifting, it's not about the adapting to something because you're still a user. When the end user is no longer around, then that's a problem. The end user. Like, just go with the example of sewing machine, which he used as an example about how we adapt with the sewing machine, which was, to me, a bad example. You sewed with hands, and it took you a long time to get an item sold. It took you a long time to get that thing together. But now the sewing machine came along and made it quicker. It made mass production. That's what a sewing machine did. Sewing machine created it where you can sew something at a faster pace. You can get clothes out. It's not the same as technology now. Sewing machines still needed that human mechanism to it to make it work, to put it together. Now you have technology. You don't need people to run a sewing machine. You don't need somebody at the plant to make sure that sewing machine is running, to make sure this design is going. It was a bad example. And now that they had a meeting with a gentleman from Google now, the key thing that I like, he said there will be a huge displacement of jobs, and we need to be concerned about that low level of a job, right? That low level job will no longer exist. And he also said something that was an eye opener. They were discussing the new Google search that they have. And he said there's 4 different iterations of this search, but he's not comfortable releasing it out yet, just yet. And if you have 4 levels already and you're scared to release them, and the level of what AI is doing searching now, what is it doing? One of the main things the reporter asked was, is it thinking on its own? Is AI thinking for itself? And he said, well, what we do is we give it so much information that we want it to think for itself. We want it to figure things out. And then what they would do was correct it, the right or wrong. Is that the right color? Is that the right height? Is it a male? Is it a female? But instead of answering the question, it overloads it with so much that it figures it out once it points out the right answer. So you never have to ask it again. So just think about it. If you're putting so much information somewhere, so much knowledge where it's forced to rethink itself, and they have quantum chips to think at the speed that we can't think about, there has to be a place where everybody who's talking about technology is afraid of futurism. I'm afraid of futurism. Like, if there's not a healthy fear in you about what's taking place, then are you expecting yourself to adapt to what's going on? Or are you looking at it where I can't stop it? Do you want to be a part of it? Healthy fear. And I know basically every week I talk something about technology, right? And one of my main reasons is because I want to always keep you aware of what's happening in the future, causing futurism. But another key thing, just because we're getting older, it doesn't mean we should run away from technology. The older we get, we really should do more reading into technology and how it could be beneficial. For the elderly, they have these robotic suits that they're bringing out to help elderly people walk. They have robots that they're teaching how to care for the elderly in these facilities. That right there was insane for me when I seen the robots taking care of the elderly. How, wow, they are really preparing for that. But it's not so much that people are not around that not going to take care of them. It's because the younger generation, they don't want to take care of them. They're going to look at it as, I want to have a robot or something take care of my mom. Because think about it, the relationship and the connection is going to be so separated. It's not like when I was younger, you guys were younger, I would go to drive on a drive with my dad. I would go, out to do things with him, to the park, to wrestling, to events, to basketball games. Now that the separation is so far apart from a child to the parent, them wanting to take care of them is going to be one of those things where we don't have nothing in common. And the love will be there, but it won't be that I love you so much that I'm willing to put my time and care into you. In the Asian culture, when a man and a woman gets married, a lot of the times they're taking in one of the parents. They're going to take in the dad's mother, the wife's mother, they're forced to take care of a parent when the parents get older. It's a tradition. Forced to, the money, hospital, and putting them away is an insult. It shuns the family. But here in our culture, it's totally different. It's a big market right now looking into adult care. They're building 2 facilities now in Brooklyn for health care, for adult care. And I was talking to my mother about it. And she said, well, they're building a lot of adult care facilities nearby. I said, but Mom, do you think that's enough? Do you think there's enough facilities to amount for the amount of people that's aging? And she said, well, they're really building a lot. I said, well, Mom, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about all of the people that you knew when you was in your 30s and 40s, right? And now think about how many people, like they're elderly now, they're older like you. How many of them have you spoken to and they're in a position where they had to move away or their kids are taking care of them? How many of them are in facilities? And she said, well, I don't speak to any of them anymore. I don't know where they're at. And I said, well, the thing is, this is unfortunately for the United States, one of the hidden, there was like, to me, 3 hidden things in the United States, right? It was the elderly, how they being taken care of, veterans, and homelessness. The 2 you can't hide anymore. You can't hide the homelessness. You can't hide the veterans. The only thing that they still hide is, where are all the elderly people? That's one thing they can hide. And it's sad because eventually you won't be able to hide that. It's going to come out. But with that being said, I just wanted to also mention, there was about 3 months ago, and I gave a challenge to everybody. I said, I want you guys to get Bitcoin in the community. So I want you all to get Bitcoin, and if $100 worth of Bitcoin, and if nobody doubles their money, I'm going to give you back your money. I'm quite sure just about everybody doubled their money by now on Bitcoin, and today was an all-time high of $72,000 per coin. They had a conversation today on the news I was watching. There was a company, and I couldn't catch the name, but doing your research, I'll probably get all this next week. They purchased over 15,000 Bitcoins. 15,000 Bitcoins. Now, there's a limit on how many Bitcoins are out there. There's only 1 million Bitcoins, if I'm not mistaken, out there. 1 million Bitcoins. They're never going to make any more. So with that being said, now we know that the banks and all these industries are getting in Bitcoins. There was another thing that I noticed about another coin called XRP. They were putting restrictions on how fast the coin travels. Like if you're paying for something, there's a rate of speed. And being that Bitcoin is so big, when you pay for it, it takes a longer time to get to the pay point. What XRP did was, now they have a requirement on speed when you pay for something. So you won't be able to pay for anything that moves with a slow speed on the blockchain. How does this work for them? Because since they're considered one of the fastest, when you want to pay for something, it's sort of like, best way to put it is, companies go, we don't take American Express. We don't take certain cards. They're already starting that with Bitcoins and certain currency, not Bitcoin itself. Well, they are with Bitcoin, but certain crypto, they're already making it where they won't accept a certain coin because of the speed, which is the same thing of saying we don't take American Express. Right? So that's one of the things that's happening in that space of cryptocurrency. So I always remind you guys, I always want you to be abreast and don't be afraid of technology, and please, please invest in that thing. One of the things I wanted to get into was commercial real estate and the impact that it's having. Commercial real estate has fallen into a crisis where there's a 20% vacancy rate in commercial real estate in New York City. And I'm going to tell you how bad it is. There is a building, and the address is 3060 Park Avenue South. Anybody knows New York, Park Avenue is very expensive, very expensive. So this building, which sold for $300 million, had an investor. This investor said he no longer wanted to be part of the building. A building that was purchased for $300 million. He sold his share of this $300 million building on Park Avenue for $1. $1 he got out of that investment. That's scary to think about. Just $1 somebody's getting out of the housing market in New York City in commercial. So the biggest problem they're having with commercial, they don't know how to convert that into residential. Commercials have most likely 1 bathroom on the floor, like about 2 bathrooms, a lot of office. How are you going to convert that into residential to live? They're trying to come up with a strategy to convert this. One of the big things that's going on with commercial banks, commercial real estate, the banks that are holding these notes, people are letting those notes go and they're going back to the bank. One of the biggest banks, which is First National Bank, is in debt of going in calamity. And the federal government is not looking to bail them out so far. So if the commercial housing market crash, that's going to be not a regular, that's not going to impact the single family homes from what I'm reading. But if that does clash, that's going to impact the debt ceiling. So let's look at what's going on with this, with the commercial market real estate space. So why would you, as a business, want to rent in commercial real estate? Doesn't make sense for you to pay thousands of dollars in rent. You have tenants, you are a tenant, you're paying another landlord, but your employees are now all home working at home. Here's an example. I know several people working from home, and this is what they're doing, literally what they're doing every day. They're waking up early than their children. So they're starting work about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Kids get up, they have to go to school, they get them ready, prepare them, either take them to school or get them to the school bus, whatever it is. Now they're working at home. Then the kids come home. So now they stop working, but you know how many people are going back online once they put their kids to bed at 7, 8, 9 o'clock, doing overtime and not getting paid for it? You're having the ultimate level of production given to these companies without having to pay for the overtime. Why would you as a company say to yourself, I want to pay rent, I'm going to have people come in. Now when you come to work, your brain is locked in on a set hours. I work from 8 to 4, that's all they're going to get from me. When you're working from home, now you can just get to your laptop, you can sit at your desk, you can work from home, give them extra productivity, and companies now are going through the roof. I know 2 people who work with the financial company, and they're giving them so much productivity, all this meeting time, and now the numbers went up. So now that the numbers went up, what they're doing is now pulling back on giving them bonuses, and they're now actually talking about taking away the sick days and taking away vacation days. Why would you need so many sick days? You're sick, you're going to be home. So they're talking about replacing these things with what? I don't know yet. But companies will not go back into renting office space. It doesn't make any sense. So what is that going to do for these major, what that's going to do for these major big buildings? They're going to have to literally, and Verizon got ahead of the curve with this. That's one thing I can say about Verizon. They got ahead of the curve. Verizon started converting their office spaces in downtown Brooklyn to condos. And now they rented out a lot of floors. When I used to work for them, this started to happen. And they just had us not report to these buildings no more. They started gutting it out. They started changing them over. Now they're getting tons of money. But the hardest thing, like I mentioned, it's hard to turn it's hard to turn commercial into apartment because they only have 2 or 3 bathrooms on each floor. Each apartment is going to need bathrooms. So now you're talking about plumbing. Plumbing is the biggest issue. You already have the floors done. You already have the space. It's hard to run these main big waste lines from each apartment coming downstairs. Normally, an apartment building, in a commercial unit, you were running this one main waste going up. And now every bathroom just will be in one space in the hallway, right downstairs in the same location, none going down the hall. That's the biggest problem you have. You're talking about them ripping up all the floors, all the concrete, going in there, try to run this plumbing through the floors, which is almost impossible because these buildings are rated for fire. So each floor has cement floors, and the piping that's coming through, now they have it sealed so no fire gets through. So you're talking about them jackhammering going through. It's not like sheetrock. So they're faced with a major dilemma what they're going to do. So I guess they'll figure that part out, but that's not on us. What I want us, meaning us, to do in real estate is start locking yourself in on getting yourself buying real estate. But we know for me, it's as a group. I need people to stop kicking your kids out the house. Stop kicking your kids out the house and saying, you know what, you're of age, go out there and go get your job, go live out on your own. Because what they're going to do is live with 5 or 6 other friends, pool their income to pay rent when they can literally do the same thing in your household. You can pool money with you, your spouse, your children, and start getting them a place before they move out. Start doing programs to get them into real estate to get them out the house. See, there's other cultures who do this all the time, but it seems like, it's a lot of my culture being one where we give them an ultimatum immediately upon graduating. It's like either you're gonna go to college and you're gonna pay for it yourself, or you're gonna go to the military. Like the thing I was faced with when I graduated. My dad he made it clear. We did our part. You're gonna go to the military, you're gonna go to work, what you gonna do? Because you're not gonna just live here for free. And I had to flip a switch and figure out what I wanted to do. But there's a different change. And another thing I want to mention too, what we have to get away from, just because we're older, and I heard Oprah say this, the opportunities that older people had is not the same opportunities young generations have now. They don't have these opportunities. They do not have the opportunity to just have 4 pay stubs, a W-2, and go get a loan to get a house. They don't have that. They do not have the opportunities of open up a paper like when I grew up, it was the Chief. You open up the Chief, you see what jobs was hiring and when the test was. The transit, postal, Verizon, like we had a newspaper. We had a way to go find these jobs. I understand a lot of them don't have the get up and go, but still the opportunities to become viable, to easily turn around the jobs isn't like it was. We had things like summer jobs. I don't know if many of y'all remember that. After school, there was a summer youth program where you would get a summer job and you would get paid to start building work character, start knowing what that was like. Like there was different things that was available. So the kids who even have motivation, who are motivated to do things, they literally don't have the outlet to go find the job or to get that thing, that internship. The internships were like apprentice. They were internships for plumbing, electric, things that I need, like you wanted to get into. Now the internships, most of them are technology driven, and most of them don't want to do interns because they don't get paid money. Like the youth now wants money. This is what they want to do. They want to get paid. So at the same token, we have to look at it like a lot of the opportunities to do things we weren't here. Like the average house was cheaper. So the average salary, you could get a house with one salary. Now you can. It takes like 2 or 3 salaries to get a house. So I'm not mad at somebody who has a job paying $30,000, $40,000 to tell him to buy a house. He can't afford a house. She can't afford a house. It's just realistic. They need to find somebody to partner with to buy a house. So it's not just because you have a job you can get a house. The numbers just don't mesh up with them to be able to get one. But we know that's all part of what's going on. And with inflation played the key part to where it is, and it's something that's never going to go away. So when I heard Whoopi Goldberg said these kids are so lazy, they don't want to do anything, they don't want to do this and that. And I remember I bought my first house with my first job, and I'm like, well, they can't buy their house with their first job because those days are over. That's just not happening. Rent back then was $750. Rent now is $3,000. So it's a big difference to qualify. That ain't working. So I think we need to have an important conversation with the generations, those that are in the house, especially those that have children and I have grandkids. How can I set them up? How can I give them some information that'll help them get into a place where they would think about renting, where they would think about partnering together to buy real estate and not just renting a place to spend money. That's going to be a hard conversation because the younger generations now, it's not a big household. Like my mother had 10 children. My father had 15 children. Back then, there was big households. So you were accustomed to being in a big household. But now the households are so small. It's 1, 2, 1, 2. That's it. So it's hard to convince somebody to really partner with a family member, because that thing of I can't wait to get away from my family but they would rent with 5 other people. It's indicative to the mindset. Like I mentioned before, a lot of children don't want to go to college just for the education. They want to go to experience what it's like to be out the house. You're just paying an expensive bill on their experience, right? You're paying for them to live alone and you're hoping they get an education, but a lot of the times they're not even there for the education. To me, there's, the theory of I'll figure out the first 2 years what my major is going to be on my 3rd year is a waste of money. You need to have the conversations with your children out the gate. And I would personally have a conversation with any child that I'm about to put through college and tell them, how about you I'll pay for your 2 years of college, but for the last 2 years, how about I give you money towards starting your business? A lot of kids graduate and they don't go to the job what they graduated for. Several of them, they will go to school to figure out something for the first 2 years, get a degree and then they have debt, and then they will leave and go do something totally different than what they went to school for. And to me, that only comes from not having the conversation of, I'm going to spend this money for you to go to school, or you're going to take out these loans. Let's figure out what is it that you really want to do in life, because this debt is something you cannot get rid of and shake it off once you start doing this education. That's a tough one to swallow there. So I want to give you a couple of things that I want to get into before we go also. Self-improvement and personal growth. It's time for me to talk about those topics. That self-improvement is something that, for me, you should never, how can I put this where it doesn't sound awkward? You should never notice your self-improvement. You should notice your change. Right? You should notice you're changing. You should notice that you're becoming a different person. You should notice that you're doing something. Self-improvement. When you're looking at you improving on something, then you're locked in on what is it that was the bad part about you. If you knew you weren't good at being a great communicator and you start to work on improving your communication skills, are you changing? If I work on being a great communicator, I want to communicate, I want to learn how to talk to a crowd of people, I want to learn how to, but am I changing? Am I changing to become a person who's using my communication to now do something and causing the impact? Am I using that skill for that? Or am I focused on becoming a great communicator to be able to talk to people better? See, the self-improvement and the change are totally 2 different things. I want people to focus on you changing, and now your improvement will just be automatic because there's so many different ways of improving. If you want to improve on being a better husband, you're so locked in on being a better husband that you're not realizing the change you need to become. You're not changing to become a better father. See, it's an all around thing. Focus on the change, not just the improvement. If I want to improve on how to become a better better partner with a business, well, okay, but what is the business lacking? Because I need to change to make sure the business grow. You want to become a better wife. Okay, well, you're becoming a better wife, but what are the things inside that you need to improve on? But that improvement should be a change that impacts everything that encompasses you as a person, not just to improve to be a better wife for your husband. How does that impact you in your relationships with sisters, with family, with relationships like you're changed into something where now people are learning something from you because you changed. You became a better wife to your husband, and now somebody else who talks to you will realize, wow, you've changed, and now they're growing from you. This is the change for me, and I'm noticing that in people in the community, because people in my community are now being more outwards. They're being more talking more. They're asking more questions. They want to be more engaging. They want to participate more. It wasn't that I said, I need you to learn how to be better at just being better at doing numbers and buying real estate, or become a better within your unit. Become better at your communication skills with talking to property management companies. No, everything that's inside, everything that I give my community to do, I want you to realize that's all encompasses change, right? It wasn't just about real estate with my community and I wanted people to get here. Nope. It was about you changing to see the future, to see the growth, to see where currency is going, see where technology is going, see where everything is going. Because I look at communities now and they're so locked in on real estate that I see it, to me, they're going backwards. I see a lot of communities going backwards. And I'm kind of baffled, because if I see it going backwards, I'm quite sure you see it going backwards. But if you're profiting monetarily wise, you're making money off of it, would you dare to step forward to acknowledge the change that your community is going backwards, as long as you're making money? Like, I can't see us going backwards. So I'm willing to sacrifice my time. I'm willing to sacrifice making money, because I need y'all to go forward. I need my community to go forward. And I'm hoping and pushing that my community sees that we're going forward, because I'm changing. I'm not trying to figure out how to be better at this. I'm completely changing. And now I want them to go, well, Storm is really changing from where he started from and where we were at and where he wants us to be. And now the community is changing. You can feel the difference. You can see the difference, because it wasn't about improvement and focusing on the improvement. It was about focusing on the change. So the change is something that we must look deeper into. I don't just want you to get locked in on saying, well, how much did I improve? Because you're keeping score, right? Don't keep score. Don't keep score about where you were, what you last year looked like, and it's cool. But I want you to think about, what was the impact? Like, if there's no impact, what was it all for? If you went from being like this person who mesmerized people, and when you got in their presence and things you said, but then you went back and you were just at all with yourself because you mesmerized people, did you impact that room of people while they were mesmerized? Did you impact them? So that's something I want to give y'all with the self-improvement. But another thing, I want y'all to look at this, because there's something else I have on my list. Overcoming adversity. Overcoming adversity. I'm going to let y'all in on something, right? And I think I'm going to just start getting right to the meat of my conversations when we get started, and not really touch on too many other topics. We're going to be faced with adversity. This community, you as an individual, we're going to be faced with adversity. We're going to definitely hit a brick wall. And the thing is, how we're going to overcome this brick wall together. How we're going to climb over this wall, go around this wall, go through this wall together. The adversity is going to come into play because there are going to be people who are not fully focused. I'm going to replace the word focus with fully committed to what we're doing, right? Fully committed. So we're going to have to make decisions on who you're working with, who we're investing our future with, and you're going to have to make immediate decisions on where to place that person, these people, right? Because there's definitely going to be someone who wants to test us. I've already been tested inside where people would, be. What I don't want to do is give out too much information, right? And seem like it's salty, because I'm not salty. People would try to figure out, what am I doing with the community? I never forget the first time when I first talked about doing group economics on social media. How many people in our space said, why? Like, asked me why, and they said, do you think you can do it? Storm, I wouldn't have that conversation because of the backlash. And I said, well, why? What? I want to do it. And then, at the same token, these situations that I'm referring to, they're not going anywhere. They're still in real estate mode, which we're in real estate mode in my community, but we're at like a whole nother level of the real estate mode. So let me stick with the adversity. We're going to be tested inside our household. You're going to be tested by your spouse. We're going to hit that wall where somebody's going to go, well, what are you getting out of this? What does this thing cost? When are we going to be able to, retire into the sunset? When are we going to be able to take out money that we invested in this thing to do that? And what I want you to remind people is this. There's no short road to the path that we're taking. There's no short path down this road that we're taking. There's no short path. We're all looking to do this great thing and invest together and make money together. But think about it. What short-term investment has ever been a great investment? Amazon lost money for over 10 years, millions of dollars. And they was non-profitable, like making non-profit. It was making no profit for years. It was definitely not profitable for years. And then they turned into this thing. See, the difference where we're at, we're looking to definitely make money. But here's the thing. I don't want it to be no confusion or misconception that once you start buying your first property, you're going to start making thousands of dollars. No, I had a main conversation with some people in another community. And I said, I want y'all to be comfortable with understanding that your wealth and the wealth of people who have money is how much money they don't have to pay the government in taxes. Like, that's your money. When you get away from thinking about how much money I'm going to get, I want to file my taxes. How much money can I get back? How much money can I get back? The goal is not to have to pay taxes. I almost had to pay $250,000 last year. The goal was not to pay taxes. So now that my taxes is being done this year, they're already letting me know, okay, you're already, in a hole for $150,000 that they owe you. Like, meaning don't have to pay them back. Like, I'm happy. I don't need to make money. So with that being said, I want you to be focused on how much can you avoid paying taxes, have these companies, because you're going to be writing off things. But then one of the key things in my community, which I want everyone to take advantage of who's listening to this, cost segregation. Like, I don't even hear that being talked about enough in real estate, where it's driving me crazy. How are they not having a conversation about cost segregation? 27.5 years of depreciation being taken at one time, and they're not talking about it enough. People are not even having a conversation about it at all. And I'm like, that is a major thing we need to be talking about. So having those high-level conversations is incredible. But when I see the conversation is about, now I'm answer. You know what? I was going to tell you. I was going to ask you to answer this question for me, right? But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to jump into something else. Do we think that the companies that went buying real estate and all of these great markets are done? They're not done. They're not done. They just went to every warm place in buying real estate. So we see everybody fixing up real estate. And I'm going to remind y'all, the objective is to make everybody a forever renter. This new generation forever renters. They just released a development where they're giving out leases for people who want to be forever renters. Like there's a whole community. They're only building houses for people who want to sign a lease that they will forever rent. That is insane to me. But that's what this generation has to look forward to. They're literally piggybacking off the fact and relying on these kids going, I never want to own a house anyway. And I'm going to sign a lease that's just all the way through paying rent. Like, they don't see it in the cards for them. They don't see any other way about it. They don't see the escape route. This younger generation, one thing I can give them, they're going to be some of the most, those that get in this space, they're going to be some of the most powerful investors. They are fearless. And the reason why, because they don't know money. They're fearless. Like when we would watch a show, or we would tell somebody, or we would hear somebody say, you know, I got $1 million right here. I got $1 million. Like I'm coming over, and you know, we see the great heist of all these shows, and they'd be like $4 or $5 million. It's in the bags. It's in the bags of money, paper money. This generation now, if they say, yeah, listen, we're gonna do this deal for $5 million or $1 million, and we're gonna do a heist, or I'm coming by to show you $1 million. All they do is pick up their device, and they have $5 million in there, millions of dollars. This is why like things like NFT went crazy, and crypto is gonna be so powerful. They went buying things for $500,000, $100,000 that was literally didn't exist because they had no fear with pushing a button. But that same mindset is also what's going to propel us into the next technology era, because they're not going to be afraid to buy this thing, get that crypto, get these altcoins, bring up the value, change, because they're literally doing now, because most of us, we're hesitant about buying. We're not doing that thing. They are doing that thing. So we have to give them that much. They're pushing us into the next frontier. It took somebody to get on a horse to ride across this plain to see its land over there. It took somebody to actually go digging to find that gold. It took somebody, and this generation is going to propel us into another phase of technology. But the only other part that makes it even more worrisome, because they're not going to know when to stop. They're not going to know when to stop. So that brings me back to the interview, if anybody's seen this, on 60 Minutes, where they had the two different interviews, one from 2019 and one from 2023, where they was talking about where was technology and where they thought it would be. And then they interviewed somebody else literally 4 years later, and his view was well past what 2019 view was about where we would be in 3 years. And 2019 wasn't afraid, but the gentleman in 2023 said, I'm worried and I will not release these other versions because they're developing a consciousness. So that's my thing for, I want us to think about the movement of these things. Family, wealth, love, business, marriage. Smokey Robinson once said, the most used word in the English language in a song was the word love. Amazing. Think about that. The most used song in the English language in the title of a song was love. Right? So I went digging. And I wanted to look that up. Like, titles of the songs got the word love. And it's love, 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 love. So I said, geez, if the word love was the most used word in songs nowadays, what is the most used word now in songs? Now. So I'm looking and I'm using all kind of AI trying to figure this out. But one thing that it did come up was mine, me. It was ownership. It wasn't love. And it's like, wow, that's a major shift. The most used word was love. Now, the most used words have to do with possession in songs. And love isn't even remotely close anymore with the generation of writing songs and titles they have for songs. What does that speak for where it's going as a household? Come on now. I need y'all to really think about that. Love is no longer a viable commodity when it comes to music. There's not even if you look in category like in your Google and Android, your playlist, there's not even a slow jam playlist. There's not even, we used to have slow jams as a playlist for everything. Like in everywhere, somebody had a slow jam playlist in their phone. Somebody had it on a player. It was a slow jam. You had a CD. You had a cassette. You had something that said slow jams. And you would throw that in. It's your company come over. Y'all chilling out. I'm playing my slow jams. That playlist doesn't exist. I said, how is this even possible? How is this even possible? What mindset, what mind state are the next generations are in, the current generation is in, where love isn't a key title and there's no slow music? How's the development of the relationship with communicating with each other as a couple? How does love develop? How does like go to love, then love goes to marriage? How does marriage come into play? How does the structure, the construct of a family look 20 years from now, 30 years from now, if the key things that were used were the building blocks, were music and the word love no longer exist? I remember times when my dad, he would get in trouble with my mother. His key go-to was music. My mother's mad at him. He would go down there. He would play the albums, all the OJs, Teddy Pendergrass, Isley Brothers, Aretha Franklin. He would like Brooke Bennett, Sam Cooke. Oh man, Isaac Hayes. He would play all of that all night. Literally until my mother would come down there. And the living room, I never forget, the living room would be dark. You just see the lights from the stereo. They called it a component set back then. The lights just from that. And it would get nighttime and she he had to go to work tomorrow. She would come down there and go in the room and, she'd be mad. I never forget, I was looking through the banisters one time, like watching. She'd go in there and then, he'd grab her by the waist and beg for forgiveness and do that thing and then she would forgive him. But guess what? It wasn't so much the words, because the communication, I guess, on that end was hard to communicate. Coming from the South, being older, the communication of how you feel was just in the music. But she knew by listening to what he would play where he was at. And that transcended with me. Where we would play certain, I don't care where you was at and what club you went to. Anybody remember this time in this era? I don't care if I went to a party and it was reggae, it was hip hop or whatever. If I'm going to meet somebody and I have me a date at the end of the night or after the club, after the party, I'm going straight to the slow music. So listen, ain't none of that rah-rah. We're going to have a relaxed time. Energy is going to be right. And we're going to listen to something mellow. But what does that look like in the future? what does that look like? Man, I only could imagine. But I wanted to share with y'all these key things about self-improvement, personal growth, where things are going, overcoming adversity. I look forward to having a great conversation with y'all next week. I'm going to make sure that we don't have a technical difficulty next week. I figured out what it was. We will start on time. I will make sure nobody gets left behind where we got to change the room. With that being said, you could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you were here with me. And for that, I want to thank you. I'm Storm Leroy. This has been another talk with me. Allow me to get things off my brain, out of me, so I can, this is my physical therapy. My physical therapy, my mental therapy. You guys are my therapists. In this version of Eye of the Storm, I want you to share with a friend, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here. And on top of that, I need y'all to do what? I need you to always seek knowledge. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.